Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes has just released, and with new releases comes developer interviews fresh off the press. There have been several interviews done thus far in tandem with the release of the game, and you can find the links to the interviews here, but this video will serve as a summarization of them so far. This video will focus on a few spoiler-free interviews released about Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes' development, so there's no risk in getting spoiled by the game's events through this video. Things like gameplay changes, timeskip designs, Shez, and the decision taken with Byleth being the antagonist will be included this time around. How Warriors 3 Hopes came to be. Initially, the original plan after the development of Fire Emblem Warriors wrapped up was just to make a second one, as in a new Fire Emblem crossover action game, which was later brought up again after Three Houses was released. However, given Koei Tecmo had helped develop the game together with Intelligent Systems, Nintendo, Intelligent Systems, and Koei themselves considered it would be a better idea to develop a new Warriors entry only all three parties could bring together. After the development of Fire Emblem Three Houses, KTG suggested the idea of making a sequel to Fire Emblem Warriors. That kicked off the discussion. We then came to the agreement that it seemed suitable to pick Fire Emblem Three Houses, which had been developed by KTG, IS, and Nintendo, as the next Warriors-type game for the Fire Emblem series. Thanks to our involvement in the making of Fire Emblem Warriors, the developers at KTG got the opportunity to be part of the subsequent development for the main Fire Emblem game series, namely for Fire Emblem Three Houses. We then considered how we could best leverage on this experience of our development team, and what would please players the most. Our answer was Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes. Staff. Genki Yokota was the supervisor of this game. Toshiyuki Kusakahara acted as character designer and supervisor of this game, working along with Three Houses artist Chinatsu Kurahana. Yusuke Hayashi assumed the role of producer, and finally, Hayato Iwata directed the game. Gameplay and presentation changes. The RPG and tactical aspect of the original Fire Emblem Warriors was enhanced further for Warriors 3 Hopes. To accomplish this, the gameplay cycle of battle preparations, war map, and battle was introduced. Each faction getting its own hub was included thanks to Three Houses, as the developers assumed people would like to interact with their faction's characters and make them stronger like in that entry. As for the war map, the feature was introduced in a way the progress of the war would be displayed to the players in an interactive and immersive way. Interestingly, the idea started as a suggestion from Kusakahara himself, in which he wanted to introduce a turf war feel to the game. That's how we came up with the current battle prep component, which also had the added effect of allowing players to locate where in Fódlan the battle at hand was being waged. Thanks to this, the players can better immerse themselves in the story. The weapon triangle, stun gauge, and pair-up mechanics as well as other features were tweaked with all these new changes in mind. Finally, though Koei Tecmo already had the graphical assets used for Three Houses ready to go for this entry, a new version of Koei Tecmo's proprietary Katana engine was used in Three Hopes, which allowed them to improve the game's presentation tenfold. Recapturing Three Houses' feel. One reason the developers, by their own admission, believe Three Hopes was able to recapture Three Houses' overall feel was because many of Three Houses' staff members were also involved during development. That, and they also received close feedback and support from both Nintendo and Intelligent Systems in the process. Although the project was based on a collaboration regarding an external IP, just the fact that we had members on our side who had been involved in the original game already facilitated the cooperation. We actually got several core members of the original work to join the development team. Invoking Three Houses' feel also involved carrying the theme of choices and freedom in its gameplay, such as the reclassing system. However, for the sake of preventing units from losing their individuality in gameplay, the various personal skills from Three Houses were introduced as well as new synergistic ones that fit the character, which was an aspect missing from the first Warriors game. One aspect which was deliberately skipped from Three Houses' identity though was the calendar system. This was a conscious decision from Koei Tecmo, as they didn't want the game to annoy players who had already played through Three Houses many times in the past. If this game were to be like Fire Emblem Three Houses and advance the plot using a calendar system, or keep the same training and growth systems from Fire Emblem Three Houses, we thought that it would be terrible for players who have played through Three Houses multiple times already. And so the three companies decided to maintain the strengths of these aspects while changing the mechanics entirely. New post timeskip designs. Given the story would follow a 2-year timeskip rather than a 5-year one like Three Houses, the new designs for students were done with the focus of capturing a middle ground between both the designs featured in the original game. And just like it, these are meant to capture the kind of lifestyle and the characters had in this Fódlan, all while considering how Byleth's absence would have in them. In fact, both Bernadetta and Marianne are listed as examples of this. And just like in Three Houses, the designs were handled by Chinatsu Kurahana and Toshiyuki Kasakahara. Shez and the antagonistic Byleth. The main reason the developers chose to go with a new protagonist this time around, rather than Byleth, was because in Three Houses, while each of the Lord's roots pushed their own dilemma and worldview on events, the same couldn't be said for Byleth, mostly because of how much of a neutral presence they were. We'd felt that the main theme of Three Houses was the conflicts that arise from the clashing beliefs of the characters, but among the characters, the only one that had no such conflict was Byleth. This is quite natural, as Byleth is the main character, and is a character for which the selected route is always depicted as the correct way. In Three Hopes, we decided to portray Byleth as the antagonist, as we wanted to further explore this theme. In doing so, we thought we could have players experience the conflicts that arise from the clashing beliefs of the characters in both Three Houses and Three Hopes. For this motive, Byleth was written as an enemy, which would not only allow the player to see them from an outsider's perspective, but also create a dilemma of sorts for those who got attached to them in Three Houses. As for Shez themselves, while they're meant to show a new view of Fódlan and its characters, they're also not meant to invalidate Byleth's. In that sense, it was decided the new changes Fódlan faced through the domino effect Shez caused would be what influenced the Three House leaders rather than Shez themselves. And speaking of which, Shez's unique class was created for the sake of giving Warriors newcomers coming from the strategy/Three Houses side of things a class that could be easy to use. Incidentally, it's mentioned it was originally far more broken than it ended up being in the final game, to the extent it didn't give much players any other reason to try other classes. The new stories. On a closing note, the story of Three Hopes was handled without Kasakahara's involvement and mainly by the KT writers that had also previously worked on Three Houses. The reason Fódlan's political landscape is also quickly and radically changed was for the sake of deliberately avoiding providing the same scenarios Three Houses had. Considering the fact that Fire Emblem Three Houses is being newly reborn as an action game and as part of a different genre, if we had used the same story, it wouldn't have been exciting enough, as this is something that many Three Houses players have already experienced. It isn't that we are trying to outwit the players' expectations, we are just constantly trying to think about and create what we believe can exceed the players' expectations and provide great satisfaction. All the routes presented are considered their own what-if scenarios, meaning that not only no story invalidates the other, but also that as a whole, Three Hopes' new Fódlan doesn't invalidate the one from Three Houses and vice versa. This may be a what-if story on the land of Fódlan, but is also a story that may or may not exist. Which story is the official version is up for everyone playing to decide. The three companies have made sure that this game is enjoyable to those who have played Fire Emblem Three Houses, so we would like for you to relax and play this game. Thus far, these interviews have proven to be very interesting reads, especially coming from a Three Houses background. One of the takeaways from me is how much the part about exceeding story expectations rings true. Speaking as a Three Houses lorehead, it was staggering how radically different the story has been so far, yet at the same time, how feasible and realistic everything is. Most impressive to me so far was Edelgard's Academy arc. Just the fact that locations and buildings that were relegated to simple trivia, buried in monastery exploration NPC conversations being actual plot points, and faceless NPCs who literally served as plot devices being completely fleshed out as real people is beyond intriguing and impressive. You would expect that Three Houses' own writers would be capable of this, right? But it feels like such a step beyond just retelling Fódlan when they've made use of so much stuff that was simply left unexplored in the original. I also appreciate the careful steps made to both recapture the gameplay of Three Houses, but repurpose it into an action game. I've sunk nearly 40 hours in total in Scarlet Blaze, and even if I weren't well versed in the original Warriors game, the mechanical likeness of Three Houses ought to make new Warriors players feel comfortable. I'm really happy that KT and IES care so much about this game. You can tell so much love and effort went into building up the story of Fódlan in this brand new lens. Well guys, that will do it for today's video. I just want to give a massive thank you to so many people. Ever since the game released, I've been streaming for upwards of 11 hours a day, which is admittedly getting a little too extreme for me, but I did want to break up the streams with the usual scripted content. I really hope you guys liked this video. If you are enjoying my scripted content, and if you're even enjoying the live streams of Scarlet Blaze that I'm doing right now, if you haven't subscribed yet, it would really mean a lot if you did. The channel is 800 subscribers away from 97,000. We're getting closer and closer. I know I say this every video, but 100K is just like a massive goal for the channel. It's been one of like a dream of mine for so long. So if you happen to stumble across this video and you haven't subscribed yet, but you like Three Hopes, you like Fódlan, you like Three Houses, consider subscribing, and it would just really mean a lot personally. With that all being said, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you either in the next video or in the next live stream. Deuces.